Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I am Kuvia Sirohi, and I'll be helping and co-hosting the seminar today. We're going to be having an amazing evening with Dr. Katerina Schenke, where she will be teaching us how to regulate the time children spend watching television, browsing the internet, and playing video games. First, let's take a couple of minutes to talk about our sponsor, Reach Learning. Reach Learning is a platform that helps children build important life skills and relieve stress from families by connecting them with the right experts. We'll be launching our platform soon, and we're giving parents and therapists an exclusive look at our website to collect feedback. The participants of this event can sign up today on asdreach.com/participate, which is the link, the URL on our screen. And you can mention that you're coming from this event, and we'll be giving you a gift card as a token of appreciation for your participation. We also develop educational games that are designed for children who need special accommodation, such as sensitivity to sounds. You're welcome to check out our yoga game, as it is free on our website. Stay tuned for our next game, which will be an emotional awareness game that will be helping children identify emotions. This is especially beneficial for children with autism spectrum disorder. We provide resources and post daily tips and tricks for parents. You can follow us on social media at ASD Reach on Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and ASD Reach Learning on Facebook. We're also running events every month, so please feel free to check out our website for information on upcoming events. And you can check out our YouTube channel for our previous events. All right, without further ado, let me introduce our speaker today, Dr. Katerina Schenke.
Great, thank you so much for that introduction. I am going to try to share my screen right now. Awesome, thank you so much for being here today. And I wanted to take some time to talk to you about a topic that I know a lot of parents have a lot of concerns about and a lot of questions about. So I'm excited to tell you more. So hopefully from today, the goals that I have for you is hopefully that I'll provide you with some information on how to think about the new screen time rules, what some positive and negative effects of screen time are, how to tell whether the screen that you're watching is of quality, how to maximize the benefits of screen time, and then how to address any concerns that you have about your child's screen time. And if at any time you guys have any questions or thoughts, please feel free to use the chat. I think someone will moderate those and alert me to anything that I can address. So before I start the presentation, I wanted to tell you a little bit more about myself and my background. So I have a PhD in educational psychology, where I spent a lot of time studying motivation in classrooms and digital learning environments. Right now, I work with a lot of organizations to evaluate and develop digital tools for kids. And I also talk to parents and youth about their tech usage. So I'm working with one organization out of UC Irvine called the Connected Learning Lab, where we're surveying and interviewing youth about their social media usage. So I'm very much immersed in this right now. Before we start, I did want to show you some examples, some pictures, and either in the chat or if you want to unmute yourself, if you want to let me know whether you think these are kind of good things or bad things that are happening. So this is the first image that I'm showing, and I'll give you a few minutes to collect your thoughts, and if you want to share them, awesome. If not, I can talk through them a little bit. So here I see a lot of kids all crowding around a television. I don't know what movie they're watching, but they're watching a movie. I might look at this and think, you know, this isn't really educational, but they're all spending time together, so maybe this is a good use of technology. Here's a kid playing, I'm not sure what game, but some sort of game. To me, doesn't look really educational. He's just playing games, so I don't know if that's the best use of technology, but he's having fun, so it could be really positive for him. Here's another example of using technology, a lot of kids talking to their grandma, that I think would be a very positive use of technology. Here's someone just playing Bejeweled on their phone. I would probably think this is more on the negative side, although there is a time and a place when you just want to sit and play Bejeweled on your phone, or maybe this is Candy Crush. But I would probably categorize this more in the negative or not as productive category. Here's a very, very young baby on a screen. I can't really tell what she's looking at, but I'm not sure about this. I know some people might say that she's too young to be on a screen. And here, what looks like an even younger child playing on something, but this to me looks like perhaps it could be an educational product. So maybe this is in the more positive category. Here we have another example of a child who is playing on an iPad, but it looks like they're playing with something that's also physical in the real world. So this robot that you see on the top left corner, which then also appears on her screen. So this makes me think that this is probably an app or a game that's where she can play. Maybe she's programming the robot to move in certain directions. So I automatically think this has perhaps some educational value in it. But what I wanted to show you with all of these pictures is that it's kind of hard to tell without knowing more about the context, whether it's good screen time or bad screen time. The parents have a lot of worries about screen time, and that those are valid. Parents should to some extent be worried about screen time. There's been a lot of studies around the associations between spending more time on screens and higher obesity rates, so like lower physical health. A lot of people have mental health concerns about what spending all your time on Instagram does to your mental health, or using the Snapchat filters all the time could give you kind of a false sense of beauty standards. And also internet and game addiction is also a huge topic that's talked about a lot. And I wanted to provide this statistic for you just to help you contextualize that even though it is a concern and we hear all about it in the media, it does only affect 4 to 8.5% of US children. So to me, I was kind of surprised to see how low the statistic was compared to how much I hear people talking about it and read about it online. So the old screen time rules, and these are ones that I think, at least from when I've talked to parents, a lot of parents have heard about this rule, but might not know that it comes from the American Association of Pediatrics, called the 2x2 rule. So they said, no screens in the first 2 years, no more than 2 hours a day. So those pictures that we saw earlier of the babies in front of screens, that would go against this rule. And so any kid who's over the age of 2, screen time is fine as long as they don't exceed 2 hours a day. Again, these are the old rules. But things have changed. So not only has the pandemic changed a lot of our interactions around the computer, kids probably had experienced at one point, unless they're still experiencing it, doing online schooling. And this has really, changed how we thought about whether screen time is good or bad. I also wanted to point out that in addition to the pandemic taking things online, the world has also changed in that we now have digital natives. So children who grew up with technology devices. I know when I was growing up, I had my first laptop at age 5, which I think at the time was really young, but my dad was also, had his own software company. So we had computers in the house all the time. So for me, it was really normal. And so because the experiences of children might not match our own, it's kind of hard to know, what is appropriate, what's not appropriate. I wanted to show some statistics and figures for you. So this was a survey done of children who are 0 to 8, whether they had a smartphone in the home, a tablet in the home, or their own personal device from 2011, 2013, and then to 2017. So you can tell that these data are already 3 years old. And if we did the same survey and asked the same question today, we might have, these might go even further up. But what's interesting to see is how stark this difference is between 2013 and 2017, especially when looking at kids who have their own tablet, ages 0 to 8. So most kids are in a home with a tablet and smartphone, even in 2013, but really what's jumping out is them having their own tablet. And I'm going to show you another one here where this is asking about kids' own devices. So this shows whether a child had their own, any mobile device, a tablet, a smartphone, an iPod Touch or something similar, which is funny because now I don't think anyone has an iPod Touch. An educational game player, which I think is similar to what we saw in that one picture of the child in front of that device, or a handheld game player. And as you can see here, the iPod Touch, which is the purple line, stays pretty flat and low, but what really shoots up is this tablet here. So it's children have their own tablets. Also during this time, and the world has changed so rapidly, is that social media platforms have exploded. So we think about MySpace and Facebook being the first ones, but we've now grown to, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok is the one that exploded this year, along with these other social media platforms like Twitch, Slack, or Discord that, Slack, I personally think of mostly as a work kind of something like a work chat, but a lot of youth also use it to gather around and chat about different things that they're interested in. And Twitch and Discord being really big in the gaming spaces, and people using these kinds of platforms more in social ways and not only in for games. So this is also very different than what we've experienced before. And we have a lot of gaming platforms now. So maybe if you have younger children or even older children, they might have played Minecraft or Roblox or even Scratch. That now these social games where kids can play with other kids around the world, these have proliferated as well. So I mentioned before we had our old screen time rules by the American Association of Pediatrics, which was the 2x2, no screens in the first 2 years, no more than 2 hours a day. They have since revised this rule, and the new rule to them is for children 2 to 5, limit non-educational screen time to about 1 hour per weekday and 3 hours on weekends. For kids 6 and older, encourage healthy habits and limit activities that include screens. So you can already see here that there's a shift in thinking around, it's not about how much screen time, but what kind of screen time. We can't really avoid screen time at this point. So this is our big idea, number one. It's about quality, not quantity. And you might be asking yourself from a parent's perspective, what should I be thinking about in terms of quality of screen time? It's really hard to decipher, especially in some of the examples that I gave, like, is Twitch good or bad? Is Instagram good or bad for my child? It's really hard to make these decisions. One thing that I think is really useful to think about are these 4 C's. I think in the original writing of this, they're characterized as the 3 C's, but I've seen later iterations where they add the 4th. So thinking about context, content, your child, and connections. So for content, what is being watched or how is it being used? So here is a little checklist that have, -1 or +1 or +2 next to them, where you can actually go through, and if you're watching your child do something, you can go through this checklist and do that yourself. So is your child watching media or playing games that are violent, scaring, or troubling to him or her? That's going to be a -2. Are the characters modeling positive social skills? Are the media designed to promote conversation or help language building skills? Do media stimulate off-screen comments or questions? Off-screen play, creation, imagination, or exploration? Do media feature some of the traits you are looking for in a teacher or a classroom? Context is the next one. So where, when, how are digital media accessed? Are you leaving the screen or TV on even when no one's watching? I know some researchers have done studies where they looked at background television noise, and for the most part, people would say that this is very negative to have a television on in the background with no one talking about it. I have heard though that for some children, perhaps with sensory issues, maybe children with ASD, this might actually be beneficial to have some background noise to kind of take away from other things. So again, I'll show you the other C, which is thinking about your child, but really think about your child and the context here. Are media replacing calming routines that could help during bedtime? If so, that might be problematic. Do you have moments in which you are jointly watching or playing with your child? After your child watches or plays, are there chances to talk about what was seen or played? Are screen media used during meal times in a way that impedes conversation? Do you talk to your child about your use of TV, video, tablets, or e-readers and what you find valuable about them? Do you tune out and miss cues from your child when using devices or screen time? So this context question, at least when I look at these indicators on the checklist, is things are more positive if you're using the media as a conversation starter. If you're also being open and metacognitive about your own use of technology and then talking to your child about that, that's also very helpful. Then another one is the child. So is there anything that you know that you need to pay attention to about your child? So I mentioned before the comment about sensory issues, and that in some contexts, it's actually really good to have background TV on. For some children, screens and technology can be really useful for helping some children to communicate. So also thinking about that. Screen time is not a one-size-fits-all model. It's highly dependent on your child, the context that they're using the tech in, and the content that they're looking at. So is there anything that you need to pay attention to about your child? Do you see particular media experiences assisting your child as he or she progresses in motor skills, social skills, or language development? Have you started to differentiate between media experiences that are not helping your child's development and those that are? If you find that your child gets upset when watching certain types of content, do you watch with him or her or find ways to avoid that media? And are you paying attention to asking enough questions to tell whether your child is engaged by what is on the screen? Does he or she act on or talk about what he or she sees or plays with? And these you can, if you were inclined to do so, can calculate a score and have a total score. And the developer of this has broken out different scores. So if you have mostly negative things, so -8 to 0, that this might be a suggestion for the parent to pay greater attention to the games and videos your child is playing and watching. Anything positive, it's, you're on the right track. You're paying attention to what's on the screen and what kinds of conversations your child has. You're doing fine. The fourth C, I have it after we did the total score because it wasn't actually included in the calculation. So 4C is connection. So whether and how relationships are facilitated or impeded. Are there ways that you can connect with your child via the screen? Is your child making connections with people in the digital environment? And I know the second point is could be thought of in both positive and negative ways, because on the one hand, these digital environments could give your child an opportunity to connect with people that he or she isn't able to. So especially now, without being able to maybe physically go to school or see friends. But there's also a bit of a worry and a danger of strangers and those kinds of things. So, being aware of maybe who your child is interacting with online. So the second big idea I wanted to talk about was the positive and negative effects of screen time. I know I've alluded to this a lot during this presentation, but maybe I'll present some ideas that you hadn't thought of before. So one of the benefits of technology, and specifically social media, could be to support youth mental health and well-being. So there's a lot of Instagram accounts that are designed to support mental health and well-being. Also things like Reddit forums where, people are allowed to find information in places where they might not trust speaking to an adult with. One of the things that I wanted to point out here, this is a chart showing some survey results of children ages 14 to 22 about using social media that breaks it down by youth with depressive symptoms and youth with no depressive symptoms. And what I thought was really interesting about this is that sometimes I would think that maybe youth with more depressive symptoms might spend way more time on social media than youth without. But here we can say they actually spend less time. So they're not constantly, and it's less so several times a day. Although it looks like there is a small percentage for almost constantly. But they're pretty much neck and neck. So, it's not overwhelmingly one or the other. Here's another statistic to show you. So among 14 to 22-year-old social media users with moderate to severe depressive symptoms, this is the percent who says using social media when they feel depressed, anxious, or stressed makes them feel. Most of them said neither worse nor better. So it's not like social media is having this overwhelmingly negative effect on youth who are reporting feeling depressed, stressed, and anxious. That, it seems to have no effect, at least among the group that this lab studied. And then I wanted to show you kind of one last statistic here is this breaks down the percent of 14 to 22-year-olds who have gone online to find information on depression, anxiety, and stress, broken out between straight and LGBTQ youth. And you can see that LGBTQ youth overwhelmingly go online to find information about depression, anxiety, and stress. And so for some groups and some youth, online spaces could be really important for them in order to look up these things. They might not trust an adult. They might not feel like they can ask anyone else that they know, and that being online might help them. So some of the benefits is to support youth mental health and well-being that I just went through. It also provides opportunities to explore identity and sense of belonging. So I had mentioned that there are a lot of online communities where, you hear stories about people who, might not have friends, and then they go online and they found people that are interested in the same things as them. So we call that affinity groups. And so online spaces can be really beneficial to them. There are also opportunities to build self-advocacy and self-context. So I'm thinking specifically for younger children in educational games that, for example, when you make a mistake in a game, you don't have as many consequences as when you make a mistake, for example, in a math test. And so kids are able to explore, test out, fail multiple times, all of this, be creative, be curious, and it's really kind of low cost to them. Or low stakes, like there's no huge, they don't have to worry about failing a test. They can just, explore and do all of these things. And so games for younger kids could really support them with that. And technology also has a benefit of providing opportunities for skill building. So Maybe it is asking your kid to play a math game and practicing your multiplication tables or addition or spelling or vocabulary. That games can support that. But on the flip side, we also have some negatives that are also valid. So things like technology addiction, developing negative perceptions of body image. Again, that, Instagram is not reality. Sleep disturbances. So staying up all night on looking at your phone and having to get up early the next day and not getting enough sleep. And that in some instances, it might also interfere with language development among very young children. So some tips to give you is, first and foremost, don't be a time cop. So it's not about, setting that timer for 2 hours and then scolding your child and taking the device away. That this potentially has the possibility of backfiring on you and lead to less positive engagement with your child in online activities. So there was an example that I was reading online saying that her daughter found ways to kind of game the system with this. So spending those 2 hours on like junk media or non-educational media when her mom just wanted her to spend time on educational games. I also want to stress that autonomy, providing opportunities for autonomy is really important, especially for kids as they're turning into their teenage years, that being a time cop really limits those opportunities for autonomy. And instead, it would be beneficial for parents to be media mentors or to model positive screen time and media consumption for your children. So, maybe all together as a family, everyone putting their phones away, or openly as a family discussing when is a good time and when is not as good of a time to look at your phone or be online. Modeling this kind of behavior is really important. Another suggestion that I saw online was to use a program like Rescue Time to log your child's activity. And this isn't with the intention of being the time cop, but to together go through the results of this log and reflect on time spent on various types of media together. Maybe ask questions. Oh, I noticed that, last week you spent way more time on this type of activity than you did this week. Like, what was happening last time? I just wanted to show you what Rescue Time looks like. Hopefully you can see my screen. So this is what the website looks like, and you're able then to, I think it automatically runs in the background of your computer. And so you're able to then get a report, and you can use that report as the basis of conversation. It's also important to stay attentive to what your child is doing online and look out for red flags. So here are some questions that you can ask yourself. Is my child physically healthy and sleeping enough? So I know sleep is a huge concern, and that is one that parents need to take seriously. So if technology use is impeding sleep, that's a problem, and then that might be a cause for maybe a conversation starter for your child. Is my child connecting socially with family and friends in any form? So, it might be that the kid is glued to their phone, but then ignoring everyone else. And that might be problematic to some extent. And so maybe trying to figure out a little bit more about how is your child interacting online? Maybe your child is socializing a lot online with their friends. And so that's something to note as well. Is my child engaged with and achieving in school? So it's also very important. Is my child pursuing interests and hobbies in any form? So it might be that it's important to you as a parent for your child to have something that's outside of technology that the child engages in. Then, is my child having fun and learning in their use of digital technology? So does it mostly upsetting experiences that they're having, or are there kind of positive experiences that they're getting from the technology? So some more tips, develop routines regarding sleep and screens. So I know I mentioned before about taking kind of a family approach and saying, you know, maybe all of us as a family, we're going to turn all our screens off 2 hours before we try to go to bed, or whatever that is that works for you, and to really enforce these routines. And then when in doubt, screen together. So earlier we had seen a lot of positive examples of technology, which is if they're conversation starters or allowing parents and children to interact together. You know, watch videos and TV together, you know, play together, ask your child questions about the media he or she is consuming. And so, you know, it could be anything like, oh, tell me, like, why are you, what makes this really cool? Why are you interested in this? Or how do you think this character feels after the other character did this? So, you know, think about the kinds of questions that you can ask. And I think one thing that I've heard a lot of parents talk about is sometimes they'll use screens as a way to give them, like, I just need 20 minutes to prepare dinner, or I need 20 minutes to do the dishes and clean up. And that's when my child can be on the iPad or screen. You know, it might just also be having your child kind of hang out with you. And even though you are cooking or doing the dishes, asking them like, oh, tell me about what's happening on that, you know, you can have a conversation that way too. You don't have to, you know, physically be watching the screen. And also being cognizant of background television. So, you know, for many kids, it's very distracting to have background television on. But even for some kids, it could be really beneficial. So make sure to pay attention to that. And then I wanted to talk about how can I tell if the media my child is consuming is of quality, or if it's like healthy media and not junk food media. So here's some questions you can ask yourself. Are there opportunities for co-play or co-engagement with my child? So is it, you know, my kid just kind of glued onto the phone, texting or chatting? Or is he or she watching or playing something that I could potentially ask about? Are there links to efficacy studies on the website of the game that the child is playing? So I'm not sure how many parents do this, but one could, if you were interested, is look at the websites of different games. So I just pulled out 2 examples here. This one is ST Math, and they just go to so this is their homepage. And they have a whole section on their validation studies. So what validation studies are is that they will commission either an external group or people in-house to see, you know, does kids playing our math games, do they learn more math? And so they've invested money or gotten grant money for this, and we'll put that on their website. And so that to me is also an indicator that this is an organization that takes learning games really seriously, and great that they have that on their website. Here's another example of Toca Boca. And even though they don't have examples of evaluation studies on their website, something like this I would think is also very high quality, because I can go through and look at things that they believe in. So play is very important to them. Quality, you can look at their about page and know that, you know, they're an app about play, and that's also really important, especially for young kids. So, you know, feel free to do that as well. Go on the websites of the games that your kids really like. Another question that you can ask yourself about how to tell if the media my child is consuming is of quality is, does it allow my child to connect with others? So earlier it was kind of allowing me to start conversations and connect with my child, but it might also be that the media that your child is consuming allows them to connect with others. So things like affinity groups on Reddit, co-play on Minecraft. I think on Scratch, even kids are allowed to create games and share them with people. So these are kind of seen as more positive or more healthy types of media. And then, does this provide my child with emotional support or mental health support? So there are a lot, and this is kind of for youth. So maybe teenagers, that kind of age range, maybe 13 to 24-year-olds, that are really geared towards supporting mental health and well-being for those age groups. So they might have kind of inspirational inspirational quotes that can be shared. So that's also important to look for. Maybe it's something that's specifically designed for mental health and well-being. And maybe it wasn't specifically designed for mental health and well-being. Maybe it's just a kind of stress reliever or something fun to do. That this is also cause for emotional support. Is the content or platform age appropriate? So there are a lot of different trends in terms of which age group prefers which media platforms. I think some social media platforms do have kind of age cutoffs, and I've heard that a lot of kids might lie about their age on this platform so that it unlocks more content, like YouTube, for example. So that's something to think about as well, that what's appropriate for an older adolescent is probably not appropriate for a younger child. And so to really kind of keep track of that and monitor that. So final recap, remember the 4 C's: content, context, child, and connection. It's about quality, not quantity. Be on the lookout for red flags, but don't be a time cop. So thank you so much. I'm really happy to be able to be here. Thank you for Reach Learning for sponsoring this. And I will take it back to you guys. I'm going to stop screen sharing now.
Anyone have any questions?
I have a question. So how can I stop my child from playing a very interesting game or something? So how can I tell him, okay, it's time to, let's say, to study or go to bed? I found this very hard.
I bet. Yeah. Yeah, that sounds extremely hard. I wonder if it's about, and it might also be for very young children, this might not work as well, but making sure that the child is accountable to what they agreed with. So maybe before, you said, okay, we can only play 30 minutes of this. Do you agree to only play 30 minutes of this? And get them to say, like, yes, I'll stop after 30 minutes, and maybe ask them to keep track of a time, or have them have a timer on the iPad that goes off, and then do it that way. But yeah, I've heard that it's hard. You don't want to like be pulling the tablet away from them, but you also, if you're getting ready for dinner or going to bed, can't have them on it. I see in the chat someone had asked how long can I permit a 6-year-old for a screen each day. So I'll just give a quick recap. So some of the old rules that the American Association for Pediatrics had said was no screen time under 2 for no more than 2 hours a day. So they would have said 2 hours a day. However, they have since revised that. And I believe for 6-year-olds, it's something like 1 hour of non-educational screen time a day. And then, so technically it's like unlimited educational screen time, but you want to limit the type of screen that your child is engaging in. So if it's something that you don't deem as beneficial or educational for them, they might say to limit that just to 1 hour. Otherwise, now it's very tricky because you know, some kids are doing school on Zoom. So does that count as screen time? So it's really about the quality and the kinds of media that they're consuming and not necessarily about the amount of time. Hopefully that answers your question.
Perfect. Any other questions?
And I think people can also reach out to ASD Reach on our different social media platforms if you have any additional questions that come up. I know we're going to be posting a video of this on our YouTube channel. So in case you missed anything and want to go back, you can, you know, speed through that.
Perfect. If there's no further questions, thank you everyone for participating today, and we hope to see you again at the next event. Take care and good night.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming, and thank you again for organizing.